who are attending these 2 lectures, because there are 2 lectures, because these lectures are belong to the breakthrough in material science, so belong to this series of conferences that are organized by the Department of Material Science. And then also Professor Ben Feringa is also delivering these lectures because for the PhD course in science and in material science and nanotechnology, especially. So it's a great honor to have him here for the 2nd time. The last time he was awarded the laurea honoris causa. He was here. And so now I would like just to give a brief summary of your curriculum vitae. So he got his degree in chemistry at the University of Groningen, and then he moved to England, working for a company, Shell. But then he came back, he went back to the University of Groningen as a junior scientist. And so then he started his career there at the University of Hagen. So his main interests are supramolecular chemistry, catalysis, stereochemistry, and then especially, so the molecular machines. So he invented molecular motors and switches, and especially, so he was for the first time he developed and then demonstrated the unidirectional rotation, so of molecule by light. So he has received many awards. He is an internationally renowned scientist, but especially he also is a Nobel laureate. So he received this prestigious prize in 2016 in chemistry. And so now I would like to introduce the professor Giuseppe Gorini, who is sending also the greetings from our rector, Professor Marco Orlandi. And Professor Gorini is the pro-rector allo sviluppo internazionale e collaborazione accademica. So, please.
Thank you, Angelina. It's a pleasure to be here and to see so many young faces, and I'm sure it is worth your time to be here on such a great opportunity. So I convey you the greetings and the welcome of our rector, Marco Emilio Orlandi. Unfortunately, he cannot be here because he's opening the nursery course in near Sondrio, so he was not able to be back here on time. Well, it's not often that we have the opportunity to have such a distinguished guest, and I'm sure that you will appreciate the value, the quality of this presence here. I think we should congratulate the department of material science that is able to bring here with us such exceptional guests. The department has a story that goes back 30 years, I believe, because that's when so even before there was the University of Milano Bicocca, so before there was the name of it even, the department was here and was starting the courses on material science. At the time it was a challenge, it was new, and one of the features is that it is a multidisciplinary course, so it's blending together different subject areas. This type of collaboration is certainly one of the features that our university is built upon. So it started with the environmental science, which is also strongly multidisciplinary, but it is a thread that goes along all of the development of the university. the quality of the events such as this one is built upon the quality of the research that is performed here and it is in fact how should I say a tangible evidence of the quality of what we are doing. I picked the task of Vice Rector for the international development of the university because I believe this in this quality and the value of what we are doing here is something that we should bring to the world much better and with much more enthusiasm that we are doing now. So this type of collaborations that we can establish, being part of an international network, is also a way to make our research excellent and to be competitive in a world where there are competitors that are much bigger than us. And I won't give you examples, but we were just discussing over lunch. I mean that there is elsewhere the research is performed at a very fast pace, and so it is challenging the way we do things in Europe, I would say. So being part of a network is important. Multidisciplinarity is a value, and I think we can benefit from all of this, and the material science is certainly an area where we can see all of that in the university. So I'm very grateful for this event, to the department, to the researchers that have organized this, and I look forward to hear the lecture by Professor Fering.
Wait. Now there is Professor Luca Beverina, prorettore alla terza missione e rapporti con le imprese.
I'll be super brief. Okay, it's quite the honor for me. I started my PhD back in year 2000. So back at the time, Professor Feringa was already very well known. And I remember that in my very first international conference, a section was dedicated to molecular rotors and the concept of molecules motion, deliberately induced motions in molecules. And back at the time, I was absolutely fascinated. There was no application, but I would have never dreamed 20 years on to be able to introduce Professor Feringa in an official occasion. So it's really special for me. As for what I'm trying to do for this university and the relationship between what I do and the topic of today's presentation, I'm in charge of relations with businesses, okay? And very frequently, I think last time yesterday, talking with companies, I always receive the same kind of encouragement. Please, more applied research and less fundamental research. So you wonder, what's the difference? Well, there is no difference. There is research and there is science, and science becomes an opportunity for technology. And I think that the journey of Professor Feringa is a fantastic example of this, because 20 years ago, molecular motion was a fantastic science, but not yet a technology, not even, I think, the hypothesis of a technology. But today, the possibility of turning light into motion, electrical stimulus into motion, becomes an opportunity in a vast array of potential applications. So what I'm trying to do from the side of the university is to help the university collaborate with companies. But with the side of companies, I'm trying to convince them that fundamental science, it's the only kind of science there is. And the applied research is just a declination of what we have to do every single day. So for you that are young, enjoy the science, and then the application will be an opportunity of what you see. And I'm absolutely eager to see what Professor Feringa is going to show us today.
Okay, so thank you very much. And then Professor Piercarlo Mustarelli, the director of our Department of...
Thank you, Angelina. Good morning, everybody. I will be very, very brief. It's an honor for me to have again here Professor Feringa. And I am proud to say that the Department of Material Science is very strongly involved in basic and applied science on functional materials. We have more than 2,000, 200 scientists, including staff, postdocs, and PhD students, and we had more than 10 million euros from Italian PNRR and many other additional million from national, international, and European project. And this allowed us to improve our activities, both from the fundamental and the applied science in experimental and computational techniques. So it's a pleasure to give the floor to Professor Feringa now. Thank you again for your very big participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now, Professor Feringa will deliver this lecture, Smart Materials from Molecular Switches to Motors. So please, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It is a great pleasure and a great honor to be here. And as I said yesterday, when I gave 2 talks, it's wonderful, you know, to be here because we have a long-standing cooperation, on porous materials and making them dynamic, etc. And I must say compliments to the joint team from the Netherlands, you know, also with Wojciech and those people, Jinju, and of course, all the people here from Professor Kamoti's group, that we can make possible things that otherwise would not be easy, because we join indeed forces and we bring together different expertises. And I think that is crucial these days, to cross borders. So yesterday I gave 2 lectures about switches, and today I will talk about molecular motors. So this is today's talk, molecular motors. And I will talk about motors in the first and in the second lecture today. And I realize there will be also people here that are not chemists. I'm a chemist, you know, and that might be a bit confused by the molecules that I will show. Sometimes the details, you know, you don't have to look at it, look at the general picture. And there will be no exam afterwards, so don't worry, yeah? But I hope we can have some discussions after the lecture. So, in the art of building small, as I said yesterday already, we enjoy the beauty of the molecular world to make new materials and asking questions to Mother Nature. And you know, this is our duty at the universities, to ask questions, you know, to see where we can make discoveries, what fundamental breakthroughs we can realize that ultimately will lead to the new, innovation, you know, in society and industry. So I often get the question, you work on molecular motors and motion. Why do we do that? This question was asked to the Wright brothers. You remember this from school, eh? The Wright brothers, more than 100 years ago, they were flying, and for the first time. And people ask, you know, why do we need to fly? If God wanted us to fly, he would have given us wings. Nobody had realized that 100 years later we would build an Airbus in Europe, eh? That can carry 400 people, 1,000 kilometers an hour across the ocean. We are admiring the beautiful pigeon, you know, the flying pigeon, yeah, the bird. But this is not flying like a pigeon, eh? And try to carry 400 people, 1,000 kilometers an hour, 10,000 miles across the ocean to America or Japan with a pigeon. You will fail. But we should also be very modest, because when I talk with my friends in biology, today, we cannot build a pigeon. Despite all the advances of science and biotechnology and biology, we cannot build a single cell of the pigeon. We cannot build one of the machineries of the flying pigeon. So there is a long way to discover. So you all have a smartphone. Yesterday I checked who had not a smartphone. There are no people here, but I don't see people that raise their hands, so I suppose you all have a smartphone. But where did it start? Which fundamental scientific questions were asked, novel insights and discoveries? You don't have a smartphone? I don't. That is fantastic. Applause for this guy. He has no smartphone. Oh, he does. Well, wait. This is not on the... He has a phone.
I have a phone.
Yeah.
But it's not smart.
No, it's not smart. No, but you are smart. So, which novel insights and discoveries were needed, you know? So, we should not forget that it was the late 40s, early 50s of the past century that the physics, chemistry, and material science, they discovered the liquid crystal materials, and they worked on the first transistor, you know. The first transistor at IBM, it filled half this room, eh? The first computer that was built by IBM, and it could do way less than your smartphone. So it was a 50-year route to change the world. Physics, the transistors, chemistry, liquid crystal materials, the batteries, engineers, devices, computer scientists, programs, and many more. And you agree with me, it changed completely the world. Do you realize they are only 17 years with us? Eh? When I was a student, there were no smartphones. Eh? And I was in a high school recently, yeah? And the kid said, how could you survive without a smartphone? They cannot imagine that there was a world before the smartphone. So realize also, it's only in the 80s that John Goodenow and his colleagues discovered the batteries, the lithium battery, and that is the reason we can have electric cars now, and we can power our smartphones. So this is fundamental science. I cannot give a better example that completely changed the world and lead to innovations in so many areas in industry. So I will want to give today a very brief introduction where I'm from. Yeah. So I'm from Holland. You know, Holland is a small country. Here is Italy. You know, we are here about here. This is there where I'm at the University of Groningen, which is an old university, more than 400 years old. And Groningen, the city of Groningen, is dominated by the students. And I grew up here on the German border. Yeah, here in this point, very close to the German border in a very small village, where nobody ever went to the university. So these are my parents. I grew up on a farm. You know, you see here the fields. Yeah, I'm from a Roman Catholic family. I'm number 2, you see, from 10 children. Yeah, so I have 6 younger sisters, for instance, and several brothers. I asked my father, I think when you grow up on a farm as a kid, you ask many questions, eh? How is it possible, you know, that these flowers of the potatoes are white? And why is this, has this nice color, you know? How is it possible that from a tiny seed, yeah, you grow wheat, yeah, or you grow a sunflower, or rice, or whatever, yeah? And so they are, of course, I had not always answers to that, but it was really great, you know, because they were very open, you know, and discussed with us. And it was the stepping stone to high school. This is my chemistry and physics teacher. And there opened a new world for me, because that was chemistry and physics and mathematics, and that was absolutely wonderful. And I got really excited because we did a lot of experiments in the classroom. Typically chemistry and physics, we do a lot of experiments. Eh? And that set me on the stage to go to study chemistry at the university. So this is the university building, the main building of the University of Groningen. And this was my professor, Professor Winberg. He was American. And he challenged us a lot. And I never forget when I was a master student, you know, we get this master project like you guys here. This was, yeah, the molecule I made. And I came after a month or so, I came to his office, yeah, and I said, now first I have to say, I worked on this project and my colleagues in the lab, yeah, the students said, this is impossible. But the professor, he said, we will make the Americans jealous. It wasn't impossible. But anyway, I made this molecule. I came to his office. I draw it on the blackboard. And I said, I finished the molecule. Here is the data. And he said, this is geweldig, terrible. This is beautiful. Because nobody in the world has ever made this molecule, not even in America. It was a completely useless molecule. But I was so proud, because it was my molecule. I made it for the first time. Can you imagine? Like your first poet or picture or whatever. It was wonderful. So I want to give credit to the teachers. I'm sure you all remember a teacher, you know, in school that made the difference in your life. And teachers shape our future with the young talents, you know. So in chemical synthesis, for those people that are not chemists, you know, it's like Lego, eh? In chemistry, material science, and so we take building blocks and we build, you know, complex molecules. And this is a complex one. Yeah, this is Taxol. This is used in the hospitals here. And this is an important anti-cancer drug to treat breast cancer for women, you know. But you see, this is an extremely complex molecule. It takes at least 38 steps or so to make it. But it's a life-saving drug. And so, in the laboratories, we build molecules and materials. We have a universal language. Yeah, you recognize that, yeah, in your laboratories. We have no borders. There's a lot of talk about borders these days, eh? Don't forget, scientists go beyond frontiers. We have international cooperation and a passion for discovery. Okay? I was in China 2 weeks ago, and the Chinese students, you know, if they had some chemistry or physics, they all recognize that this is sugar and this is the periodic table of the elements. And the periodic table, as I said yesterday, that makes up everything here. Your body, all the materials, everything around you, that's the periodic table. And I want to give credit to one of my heroes, discovering our future, yeah? Louis Pasteur said already 150 years ago, science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch that illuminates the world. And I think we have the duty to keep this torch burning at our universities. So, after my PhD at Groningen, yeah, I worked at the big Shell laboratories in Amsterdam, you know Shell, the big oil company, working on catalysis. Then I moved to England to do bioscience in England for 1.5 years. Then I moved back to Groningen because I wanted to work on my own research, my own programs, making my own discoveries with my students and build a research team. And then this was me, you know, when I started in Groningen as a young assistant professor. And my students found on Twitter recently, we chemists are lucky you choose academia instead of becoming a rock star. Apparently I had long hair, etc. I cannot make music, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot even sing. I have 6 sisters, and they made one thing clear to me when I was a boy, when I was a teenager, never sing again. So that was very clear. So, but apparently I said at that time, this is now 30 years ago, the beauty of chemistry is that I can create my own molecular world. And this is what I have ever done since, yeah? And that's the beauty of the university. So we build molecules, and this is what we do in the laboratory. And today I want to focus a bit on rotation, you know, and also a bit on translation, motion, because that was a big challenge. We started with switches, as I discussed yesterday, but then how to make something that moves, like in Mother Nature. And so you all know in daily life, we have all these machines here, but how to make something, yeah, on the level of molecules, 1 nanometer, 1 billionth of a meter in size. And so I give a few examples of early work, also by giving credit to other groups, because this whole community is very big now. But this is, we like rotors, I know. Eh? You like rotors a lot. This is the early work of Joseph Bickel, you know. Eh? Unfortunately, he passed away. And of course, you have rotaxans and so. And Ikeda, he made the switches. This is not a motor, this is switches, but he put it in a polymer, and he could rotate something under the influence of light. But this is also something, you know, that is really interesting about rotation. So you can rotate molecules with respect to each other, about a ball bearing. So this is internal rotation, yeah, these systems. And Jean-Marie Lane in Strasbourg, yeah, he made this kind of molecules that when you add, for instance, lead ions or other ions, you can fold them up. You see, you can make springs, yeah? This is all about self-assembly, supramolecular chemistry. I'm part of the supramolecular community, and you see, you can have different designs. But none of this is a motor, of course. So this is the rotaxans once again. I want to give credit especially to Stoddard and Balzani, yeah? Balzani is one of my other heroes, and Stoddard, unfortunately, passed away, yeah, last year in December. And they made this rotaxans where the ring is shuttling. This is also a machine-like function, you know. But we were focusing on rotary motors. And so what we did is we looked at rotors. And once again, I want to remind you, when you have a single bond, yeah, you can rotate around the single bond. And Michael Garcia-Gariba at UCLA, he showed that the rotation is extremely fast, 100 megahertz, you know. So this is just thermal motion, yeah. And of course, you can put big groups, and you can block it, the rotation, yeah. And if you're not these big groups, it rotates freely at very high frequency. But once again, this is not a motor, eh? Because there is no energy input, it's just a thermal motion, and it rotates not in one direction, eh? It's just random. So, if you have a single bond, there's free rotation, realize, yeah, that this is just free rotation. It's just thermal motion. The molecules in your body move, yeah? The molecules in the plastic also, depending how hard or soft it is, you know. But molecules, they have internal motions. So, a molecular motor. We all know what a motor is in your car, yeah? But what is the motor in nature? There are many, many motors in Mother Nature, and they push the system out of equilibrium. I'm sure here in Italy, I would have the same experience as in the Netherlands, that sometimes on television, these lifestyle program, yeah, or these lifestyle magazines, they tell you be in equilibrium with yourself, eh? Don't be in equilibrium with yourself, because if you are in equilibrium, you're dead. A biological system is out of equilibrium, thanks to all these machines in your body, the millions of machines, okay? Realize that, eh? But be in harmony or balance, that's okay. A certain harmony in your life, that's fine. But don't be in equilibrium. So these are two of my favorites. This is the ATPase rotary motor. There are billions of these motors in your body. And this is the bacteria flagella motor. Yeah, that makes the bacteria swimming in your guts. So the bacteria can swim forward and backward. And it can go in two directions. Isn't it amazing that nature developed this? These are just a few nanometers, a few billions of meters in size. This ATPase, yeah, rotary motor, I don't think I mentioned it yesterday. These produce the ATP, the fuel in your body. Now, you know how much they produce every 24 hours? All these tiny nano machines in your body? Half your body weight. Can you imagine? Half your body weight every 24 hours. Now, I just enjoyed a beautiful lunch here, yeah? I like Italian food a lot, but I don't eat half my body weight every day. So what is one of the most pressing problems that we are facing in our society is recycling our materials. Come on, guys, we are not smart enough. Your body recycles half your body weight every 24 hours. Realize that when you take your next meal. So, now we have to control directionality, you know? Because if your car goes backward or forward, left or right, you wouldn't get anywhere, eh? So we need either right-handed or left-handed to control directionality, yeah? And we have to power it. So for the duality, for the left or right, we take advantage of this fantastic quote by Nature, 2003, the Mona Lisa of modern science. You all know what the Mona Lisa is, eh? This is the right-handed helix of DNA. And of course, the proteins in your body, they are all left-handed, yeah? The amino acids. So although symmetry, yeah, is a sign of beauty, yeah, in art, in your body, everything is asymmetric, eh? If it would be symmetry, we wouldn't sit here. The DNA right-handed, the amino acids left-handed. So what we did is we built this motor, either right-handed or left-handed. And it's powered by light. It's a light-driven motor. So this is the smallest motor in the world, yeah, that we designed several years ago. And it's a rotary motor because it has controlled motion. It consumes energy. Eh? If you don't put energy in it, your car will stop. Eh? There's no fuel, it stops. Directional movement, I mentioned, you have to go clockwise or counterclockwise. And it's a repetitive process. Otherwise, it would be a switch that I discussed yesterday. So this is a power stroke motor. We can make it rotating clockwise. We can make it rotating counterclockwise. How does it work? It has 4 steps. You see here, photochemical step. This is light-driven. Thermal-driven, photochemical-driven, thermal-driven. And the essence is that the light powers this motor. So, powered by light, and it has 2 guidal elements. What do I mean by that? If you have either left or right, it's very difficult to distinguish, eh? Left or right, okay? But if you need something other, guidal, to make the distinction. Can you come forward for a second? I need you for an experiment. Yes, please. Come. Don't be shy. Step here. You see, I have right-handed. I built my molecule right-handed. But how to distinguish right and left, you see, this is fitting, eh? And now this one, yeah. Okay, 2, try. Yeah, that doesn't fit, eh? So we need a second guidal element, 2 guidal elements to distinguish between left and right. Thank you so much. Applause for the lady. So, you see, We need two guided elements, and then we can distinguish between left and right. And it rotates continuously as long as we power with light. How do we measure? Sorry, now I go a bit into details. You know, we can see each state by using different spectroscopies. And we can use NMR spectroscopy, circular digorism spectroscopy, because you change the helicity. You see here a right-handed helix, a left-handed helix, a right-handed helix, a left-handed helix, and we go through these 4 states and we rotate. Yeah? And it's very stable and it rotates continuously. Oops. Now, how can we control the speed of such motors? Because the original motor we made rotated only once an hour. Now, you cannot build a car when it rotates only once an hour. All right? But now we have motors that rotate 10 million times per second and everything in between. It depends a little bit about how much energy you can get in, yeah? But this is where we are. We can precisely tune the speed to a specific application. So this is a small collection of different motors we made. You see this one has a speed of 233 hours, yeah? This, half-life, and this is 1 millisecond. So this is slow, and this is extremely fast. And this is even nanoseconds, you know, you see? You go from hours, days, to nanoseconds. And we can tune it. This is typically what chemistry does, of course. Building molecules with different functionalities, you can change the electronic properties, the steric properties, and you can precisely tune the speed. Yeah? That's what we do all the time in the laboratory. So we put also metal ions, because we were really interested, you know, to bridge to inorganic chemistries. And so we put here, for instance, ruthenium, and here 2 nitrogen atoms in the lower part. And when we use a LED lamp to irradiate, you know, you can go now to much longer wavelengths, so shift all the way into the visible spectrum. So we have motors now that rotate with solar energy, yeah? And so I don't want to go into the details, but you see, they are very stable. You can go through these cycles very easily, and you can use different metal ions, of course, to tune the electronic properties. We could also put metals here in the lower part, and then rotate, yeah, and simultaneously an oscillation motion. We published this recently, and this is really nice because, you know, you want to couple your motor in your car is coupled, of course, to other mechanical movements. And if you want to make a machine, you want to have different movements. So you couple a rotation, for instance, to something that goes back and forth. And this is what we found here, yeah, a kind of crankshaft, yeah, that we could design using this kind of, yeah, inorganic complexes. So once again, the rotation, yeah, every time you rotate, it starts to do this, yeah, the wagging motion. Don't ask me exactly what you could do with it, but we have to make stepwise to more complex motion and to real machinery. And I will show you a few applications in my second lecture. So you might also ask, you know, you rotate, yeah? Now I'm talking about very fundamental question. If you have a small, yeah, motor, or you put long arms, okay? What will be the effect on the rotation? Or if you have stiff arms or flexible arms? Because that is very important for all kinds of materials application. And we did a lot of studies, and it turns out that the solvent viscosity, so the viscosity, yeah, is really important. So I don't want to go to these details, but we put all kinds of long arms there, flexible, rigid, and it turns out that if you have a more viscous situation, look, it works fine in all solvents. This is DCM, DMF, etc. But once you go to a viscous glycerol, you all know glycerol is very viscous, Yeah? They use it, you know, in skin creams and all these kind of things. And so when you have a viscous, of course, the movement is difficult, yeah? With the long arms, and you see a dramatic effect. So we know now that the fundamental studies tell us that this plays an important role. And then something we discovered recently, I get always this question, how efficient are these motors? How much of the light energy goes into the rotation, you know? Realize, does anybody know what the efficiency is of a gas-powered car, petrol-powered car? The amount of energy, you know, that you get, an amount of motion? Yes, it's less than 20% as far as I know. Maybe now with the newest Ferrari, you know, it's a little bit better, but in general, it's only 20%. In the beginning, our motors had an efficiency of 10, maximum 20. But now we put in groups, don't look at all the details, yeah, but we boosted the efficiency, yeah, to well over 80%. So more than 80% of the energy of the light goes into the rotational motion. So we are extremely pleased with that, because you can imagine, I have now several people in my team working on this discovery to make more advanced systems, yeah? And in our cooperation here also with Professor Komati's group at the Material Science Institute, I'm looking forward to see if we can have this efficient motors now also incorporated in our materials, because then we can take the solar energy and it will be more than 80% will be used to make dynamic systems and dynamic materials, you know? So that's what we are looking for. So we can also switch, yeah? Because you see, when we put here an amine group there in the top, yeah? We can switch from a switch function to a motor function. So when it is, you see, it depends all on, once again, how you design this molecule. So you can have a rotary motion, or you can have a switch back and forth. And that gives us other tremendous opportunities, because you remember the people that were at my lecture yesterday, with switches, you can control on, off, all kinds of functions. But then, depending on what we do with the amount of the protons, we can go either to a switching function or to a rotation function. It has all to do with the electronic properties that we tune in these machines. And then you might ask, okay, Dr. Veringa, that's nice, but if I'm in a car and you rotate, you put your engine on, I also have a brake. Can you put a brake on your motors that you illuminate with light and then put a brake? Yes, we can. Look, we put a ring here with ammonium groups, taking inspiration from Professor Balzani and Professor Stoddard. And you see when it's locked in the ring, it does not rotate. And here, the rotation is free. So you simply, again, by adding some proton, we can lock, unlock. Here we made another one, which is a kind of diarelatine switch. When we have the switch not closed, here it's closed, here it's open, it's on, it rotates. Here you get energy transfer and the motor is off. So we have different ways to control on, off the rotation of these motors by molecular design. And realize this is the kind of principles that Mother Nature uses, of course, in your body, with the ATPase and all these motors, because you can control motion via different pH environments, etc. Now, directionality. That's an important point. I will skip this one, because I tell you just that we could also, instead of putting the chirality in the motor, we could put it externally, because you get different complexes, and that dictates if it goes clockwise or counterclockwise. So we use a supramolecular approach, not putting the chirality in the motor, but putting the chirality in an extra group that we bind to this motor. And that gives other opportunities, you know, for making control motors. So, directionality and synchronization, ladies and gentlemen. Does it work? Here, look, we take two of these motors, we put them together, and this is what we call a third generation motor. And you see now, it's symmetric. You see here the X-ray structure. It's like the wheels of your car. And the question is now, can we control the directionality? And indeed, otherwise I would not have told it, you know. This was a long journey of my students. But you see with this so-called pseudo-asymmetric center, you can see that it's pointing towards you. And that makes the difference. So we can make this, here, pseudo-asymmetric, and you can rotate both wheels in the same direction, like a car. And it works. Once again, you put here a hydrogen, which is very small. You put a methyl or a tertiary-butyl or whatever, and you can change the rotation direction of the two wheels. So going clockwise, going counterclockwise. So once again, you get, in this case, more than 99% selectivity. So the two wheels, we can make it now that the two wheels rotate in the same direction with more than 99% selectivity. That's cool, yeah, when we discovered that, yeah, because you can imagine they go random, yeah, but now we can build things that move on the surface, you see, because this is one molecule on the surface, yeah, we make a patent material, and we take one of these, and it moves like, yeah, it crawls over the surface, yeah, with the two rotors in the same direction. Okay, this is the latest we published recently, where my student, Carlijn van Beek, she is a PhD student, she made these new motors, yeah, and she could, once again, this is a complex scheme, but what she found is that the rotors communicate with each other. So they communicate, one rotor communicates with the other rotor. So like the two wheels in a car. And so we are extremely pleased with that we know now how to control this motion of multiple rotors. Okay, I will go to this was just accepted, yeah, where you might ask, how can you control the wavelengths, yeah, the light, okay? And we use nanoparticles. You see, we have these tiny particles, and you can then use them to transmit the light, and we can go to green light, yeah, we can go blue light, we can go to red light. And so we use the tricks of physics and physical chemistry to use the wavelengths, different wavelengths of light, and we can do the energy transfer to the motors, and that allows us to use the whole visible spectrum to control the motion of these motors. Now, can we couple motion? Can we synchronize motion? Because that's important in machines, eh? So, you see here a helix. I talked about helices before. You see a helix, yeah? You have here a rotor. And you see, when we rotate, yeah, the helix starts to do this. So this is synchronized. You get a kind of pedaling motion, yeah? So you rotate, and you do a pedaling motion of these groups. And that works beautiful. And so we are using this now for a kind of, we want to make something that can walk. You know, you can imagine you rotate, and then you have a pedaling motion, and maybe you can make something that can walk over the surface. So we also yeah, I show this picture because I want to give you a flavor of what you can do with these things. You see here we put on the motor 2 rings, yeah? And realize when there are 2 rings and you irradiate, the motor starts to rotate, what happens? It starts to wind up like a spring, eh? So we get a spring-like function. And that works beautiful. You see we can wind up, we get 3 windings, yeah? We put in a lot of energy in the bonds, and then at a certain moment they snap open, and then they go back, yeah, to the original state. So we have also a motor-based molecular spring now, where we can put in energy and store energy using this principle. Now, I don't know how many of you look at the moon in the evening. The moon is beautiful, eh? When we were discussing, you know, about synchronizing motion, my students, we had a discussion in the group how to do that. And then my student said, let's look at the moon. Because, you know, with the moon, you have a tidal motion, eh? We can see only in Holland and also in Italy, one side. You see the man or the female on the moon only from one side, eh? You realize that. Except for in China, eh? They can see the back side of the moon because they put a satellite there. But we cannot see the back side of the moon. This is synchronized motion, yeah? Now you might wonder, are these students in Groningen so romantic that they look at the moon every time? I don't know, maybe in the evening. But the most important thing, of course, is that you have this special motion, yeah, this synchronized motion. And so what we did is, we made this, look, here is the motor with the axle, yeah, powered by light. And here is the rotor. You remember in the beginning I talked about rotors, rotating about single bonds. And if you stand here, look, imagine you stand here, you see this going around, merry-go-round, like the moon around the earth. So this is indeed, this was difficult. It took us 5 years, you know, to prove it, to build it and prove it. But we made it, and it goes like the moon around the earth. And this is for us an important stepping stone to the next generation molecular machines, synchronizing rotary motion. And I don't want to go into the details, but once again, if you have this rotor here, and you stand here, you will always see the same face, yeah, like the moon, okay? Because it goes around, 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 yeah? It's dynamic. And so this is the principle. You put this group here, yeah? There's no free rotation, that's important, but it can go around, yeah? It can adapt the shape, and you always see the same face. So this is one of our designs that we enjoy a lot, you know, going a step towards real molecular machines in the future. Okay, what I did in this first hour, yeah, is I talked with you about molecular rotary motors, taking inspiration from Mother Nature, the ATPase in your body, you know, the rotary motor, and we built new motors. We can control the speed. We can switch them on and off like a brake, yeah? We could use the sunlight because we can tune the wavelengths of the light. Here again, I take advantage, of course, to work together also with my colleagues in physics, yeah, and in material science, because if you want to do this, you need to do also femtosecond laser spectroscopy, transient spectroscopy. I don't have it, but my physics colleagues have that, yeah. You have to work, yeah, with these delicate nanoparticles, you know, with energy transfer and so, and we can make them in our material science department in the clean room. Coupled motion and directionality, you know, with two rotors that rotate, but also synchronized motion, as I saw, to go to more complex machines. So let me think, yeah, this is not a picture of the group, you know, we share a passion to invent our future. Yeah, that is really what we are, why I'm at the university, you know, inventing our future. And oh yeah, facing our future, we should realize I'm a chemist, you know, and chemistry is sometimes, the Americans call it the creating science, yeah? So, sustainable products and processes, you know. Yesterday I talked a little bit about that already. Reinventing materials. We have to make smart materials to do it better than what we do now, yes? How changing the face of the chemical industry. There is a real urgent need for fundamental innovations that ultimately become, I fully agree with you, fundamental science that will bring breakthrough innovations. Think of your smartphone. Think of the electric car, yeah? And we will have to do it. And of course, trial and error to molecular design. Yesterday I talked about switches, you know, in drugs, pharmaceuticals, to make smart pharmaceuticals where we cooperate with the hospital. Yeah, this is a completely different approach, yeah, to pharmacy and to drugs, etc. Many fundamental questions, challenges and perspectives for industry and society. And I'm a strong believer that we have to lay the foundation, yeah, for this at our universities, but also I cooperate with several industries, yeah? So we have joint projects with industries where they say, help us to come up with new solutions, yeah, that we can implement in our industrial processes. So for that, we also install robots in the lab. AI will be very important for our discovery programs, you know. I'm sure you do that here as well. So we have, this summer, we installed several robots in the lab to automate, yeah, some of the processes, you know, and the discoveries, and that gives us a lot of opportunities for the future. And we have to train also our students there. And finally, yeah, I refer, you know, to this paper that we published, yeah, last year with my students and with people, colleagues in the lab, Sustainable Laboratory Practices. This was published in RSA Sustainability because we can advocate that we make new materials, that we make new methods, that we make innovation and all the time. But if we look at our own laboratories and how we train our students, there is still quite a way to go, yeah, to make it real sustainable, yeah? And we did an analysis, and you can save a lot of money, I tell you, you know. So here, for the directors here, you know, we saved in our labs, you know, for instance, yeah, we saved 8,000 euros a month, yeah, simply by implementing some of these measures, yeah, how we use solvents, you know, how we use, I mean, the number of gloves, you know, you throw away, yeah, all the things. It's even worse in the hospital, by the way. But also in our laboratories, you know, in the institutes, we should think about that. And with that, I want to finish, you know, with two things. One is, after my Nobel Prize, they told me, what are you going to do, Dr. Vieringa? Are you going to retire? I said, do I look like I'm going to retire? No. So I want to continue with research. So I was interviewed by the BBC television, and they said, Dr. Vieringa, what is your future? And I said, look, I want to do research, because that's my hobby. I enjoy, the passion to do research, invent our future. But I also started a foundation, and we go to schools. You see me here doing experiments with the kids in school. I go to elementary schools, to high schools, and so. And then this is organized by a university. They have a so-called Scholierenacademie. So they organize it for me. Which schools we go with our students. So we go with the team to schools. We have a kind of discussions with the students, and we do experiments in the classroom. And we do that in elementary school and in high school. Of course, you have different levels, but it's absolutely wonderful. And then they said to me, after I did this several times, they said to me, we have to give him a present. Yeah? Okay. But he has already a gold medal, so we cannot do that anymore. So let's look in America how they do that. This is Sir Fraser Stoddart. He is in Chicago, Northwestern University. And in front of the chemistry department, he has 2 parking spaces. Look, permits F01 and F02. This is his limousine. This is how they do it in America. America is a big country, yeah? But then they said, we have a problem. Because Vieringa does not need a parking space because he always bikes to the lab every day. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a private parking space. Look, bicycle parking space, repairs for Nobel laureate. This size. Holland is a small country. It's this size, but I can park exactly my bike there. Yeah, and I'm greatly honored. So thank you very much.
So this is the first part of his lecture. Then there will be a second lecture. Now we have a 10 minutes break, but if there are questions, please raise your hands or keep them for the second time, for the second.
The student in the first row can ask the first question. I'm also looking at the others, but we can also have discussion afterwards. Please go ahead.
So essentially, in your approach, you harvest motion from light, and there are also different approaches like Stoddard. He harvests motion from chemical potential, essentially. Do you think it would be possible somehow to do the opposite and harvest chemical potential or light from motion?
Oh, yeah, that's a really to use the motion and then see if we can harvest. Yeah, what we did is we put, for instance, in these motors and catalytic functions, and we can control catalysis. I was discussing about switches yesterday. We do this so we can do different catalysts, yeah, with the same system because it rotates and it then controls catalytic reactions. And also for energy, what we mainly did is luminescence, yeah. So the LEDs and the luminescence, and there is a big incentive to control luminescence, yeah? And so when we do the rotation or switching, we can change the luminescence, yeah? And this is what we do at the moment. But it would be indeed also interesting if we could use it for energy harvesting or storage or so. What we have so far done is only with polymers, but I will show you in my second talk, yeah? This afternoon, I will show you how we make artificial muscles and how we build a nano car. So this is stepwise to harvest, yeah, the power of this motor.
So, are there any questions? Oh, there. Please.
Hello, thanks for the talk, and just maybe a naive question about the molecular rotors on surface. Did you evaluate the interaction with the surface, the termination of your molecule, and the interaction with the solvent? How does the interaction compete with the rotation?
Yes,
maybe
sir.
the stacking will interfere, I don't know, but this is just a naive curiosity. Thank you.
This is a really important question when you put them on surfaces. Go to my second talk. I will talk about molecular windmills, and I will mention, and you can ask questions there. You will see what we do. Yeah, because it's important, yeah, that you do interfaces. The motor, the ATPase rotary motor is in your cell membrane. Yeah, millions and millions of them that make it possible, you know, that you make, and they are pumps, yeah, but they also produce the fuel. And when I talk with my colleagues in the physics department, the first question I always exactly what happens if you put it on an interface? Yeah, can you make a device out of it? So we had to study that, but I will show you an example after the break. Thanks for the question.
Okay, are there any questions?
I think we should have a break now.
No questions now? So 10 minutes break and then we will start again. So many thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, this is the second lecture. And so on smart materials from molecular switches and motors. So Professor Feringa, please. Oh.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I will focus in this lecture 4 entirely on molecular motors, and I will show you some examples because you know now the basic principles, how we designed these molecules, yeah, how we can control the speed, the directionality, how they behave, you know, at different environments, all these things, yeah. So and we could use them to make a kind of molecular spring and so, and yeah. Now I want to show you some applications of these motors, what we can do with it. But first, you know, if you think about motors and you think about the natural cell, look, the complexity of a cell with all these machines and to make it dynamic. Because motion, dynamics, is in every cell in your body. And it's incredible, you know, how you move everything from one compartment to the other. Yeah? Oops. Why does that move? Okay, so the cell, yeah, realize that the cell is more complex than the whole city of Milan, with its 4 million people and everything in it. So you have all this complexity of a human cell. So what I do is, I will talk again about motors, and I mentioned already in my first lecture, these are my examples of most fantastic motors, you know, that you can find in your body, yeah, and there are many more, But can you imagine that Mother Nature in evolution discovered this? Yeah, we normally don't think about it, but this is what keeps you going, you know, that powers you, and also the bacteria, of course. So I made this motor, as we know now, which is a power stroke motor. It rotates, you know, and we can control the rotation, but we can also control the directionality because we can go clockwise or counterclockwise if we have the right stereochemical elements. So we can put these motors in membranes. This is I added this slide this morning because I wanted to share with you something, because I started with cells and the complexity of a cell. But I have a girl in my group, Ainoya Guinness. She is from Spain. She did a PhD. She finished last month or 2 months ago. And she works together with the Max Planck Institute in München, Petra Schwille. And we put these motors in cell membranes. Look here. This is a cell membrane, and these motors are now in the cell membrane. And you know, in your cell membranes, the membrane pressure and organization is very important, for instance, for cell division or for cell fusion. And we could show, look, by rotating these motors, you can see that the cells come together, and we even have cases, you know, where the cells start to fuse, yeah? And we look now at the division of cells, simply by embedding these motors, because when they start to rotate, yeah, you change the pressure in the membrane, yeah, and you change the packing in the membrane. So we look for this kind of fundamental problems, how we can interfere with cell function, yeah? So I show you this just because we are very excited about this. The paper just is appeared in Langmeer, the ACS. So, to control motion, we put motors on surfaces. Yes, sir. Thanks for the question. You see here with 2 legs, stator, axle, and a rotor. We put them on surfaces. We put them in polymers. I will show you that. We made a nano car, and we put them in liquid crystal materials. The material, you know, that is in your displays, your flat screen, in your smartphone. And we put them, of course, in MOFs. And you realize 2 weeks ago, beginning of October, there was the announcement of the Nobel Prize, Kitagawa, Omiyagi, and so, Robson, for MOFs, And I got a nice medal in Stockholm for motors. And to combine this field is really exciting. So I'm extremely grateful that we have this collaboration with your university and the Material Science Institute via Professor Komati, that we can have several publications now on integrating motors into this porous framework materials and making dynamic functions, you know, because that opens up a lot of new opportunities, etc. So you can imagine this is quite a hot field. We bring two different fields together. So polymers, let me start with that. You all know what a polymer is, eh? And for a polymer, to make a polymer, you need an initiator. Yeah, you need an initiator, a molecule that brings all these monomers together to form a long polymer. And we thought, with this, if we take a motor as an initiator, can we make polymers, you know, yeah, that we can change the polymer, yeah? For instance, we make helical polymers, you see here, and then we irradiate, and you can go to right-handed polymers or left-handed polymers. So we can change the architecture of these dynamic polymers, yeah, using a molecular motor. And we use that for polymers, but you need only a tiny amount, because for initiators, for polymerization, you need only a tiny amount, and then it starts to initiate the polymerization. And you can make lengthy polymers. We also use it to make aggregates in water. So we put groups there, you see here urea groups, and they simple aggregate to form helicates, you know, like DNA or like proteins. And we can control via the motion. We can go to spherical objects or to helicates. And this opens up a completely new area in this field of soft materials. And we have also a multi-state induced emission. This is really important. I get a lot of questions about this because this emission, to control emission, yeah, think about that, light emission for LEDs and so, is really important. But then we got inspiration from this gentleman, and you know this is Jean-Marie Lane. And Jean-Marie Lane published, he is one of the heroes, of course, of supramolecular chemistry, yeah? So he got a Nobel Prize for supramolecular chemistry in those days. So he published already in 1987 this double helicates, which is simple inorganic coordination chemistry. Copper 1 with the bipyridines. And when I discussed with him, we thought, wouldn't it be cool that if we put our motors there, and then to the end, and can we then control helicity? So can we go via the motor, yeah, when it rotates, go to a double helicate that is left-handed or right-handed. And that works beautiful. Because, you see, when the motor, the groups are far apart, yeah, like this, it forms polymers or oligomers. But when they come together, they form a double helicate. Yeah, like DNA. And they can go P for plus, right-handed, or an M for minus, negative, left-handed. So we can control, yeah, the helicity of these dynamic systems very now and put the system out of equilibrium. And why do I put this in red? You know, I mentioned earlier, your body is out of equilibrium. And we have to learn to make materials and systems out of equilibrium because that opens up tremendous new opportunities. And here you see a polymer, supramolecular polymer, that is out of equilibrium because as long as we put in light, yeah, it goes through this cycle, and it goes through a cycle of polymers and monomers, it assembles, disassembles, etc. So recently what we did, and this is very recent, we put peptides there. This work we do together with Professor Jacquemin in France. And you see here we put a small peptide, and now we can do the same trick. Apart and together. And then they form these beautiful helical structures, you know. And so we are integrating these motors now with peptides, proteins, and also with DNA. I have people in my group working on DNA where we also try to control DNA in this way. So that is the integration with polymer chemistry and with biosystems. But smart materials, I mentioned already, you know, liquid crystals. We all know what a liquid crystal is. I see, except for one person, you have all a smartphone. And the screen, yeah? Who has a smartphone there? Have you a smartphone? Okay. Can you push on the screen? Don't push too much, because then you destroy your smartphone. But you feel behind the glass is a soft material. That's the liquid crystal, display material. These are rod-like molecules. They are organized like beams in a river, you see? And when you want to make a display, you make a helical organization because the color in the display, if you have a red or blue color, It depends on this helix. If you have a long helix, yeah, the Bragg reflection of the light, you get, yeah, red light. And when you have a short helix, you get blue light. This is how you get pixels in your display. Did you ever thought about it? You contract, expand, contract, expand. This is how you make color pixels. So what we did is we took our motor, 1%, we dope it in the liquid crystal, and when the motor rotates, it starts to contract and expand, yeah, because you change the chirality, the helicity. It starts to contract and expand. And you see, in a minute, we can make every color pixel. We don't need electricity, we only need light to power the motor. And then this was the eureka moment in my career. I will never forget. This was a Tuesday, 5:15, and my student said, you have to come to the lab, we want to show you an experiment. They made a thin film of this material, the display material, on the surface. And you see, this is soft material, micrometer thick, and you see all these waves, like waves on the sea. Eh? This is typically what you get. And then they put a glass rod on top of it, you see the dimensions. The motor is in there, a tiny amount, and it's only 1 nanometer. You cannot see it. Eh? And then, you know, the only thing my students did, yeah, they switched on the lamp. And this is what I saw. You see the whole surface is moving. You see the object is rotating clockwise. We can rotate it clockwise or counterclockwise. You see the whole color is changing. Yeah? This is now a responsive surface of these soft materials, taking advantage of the liquid crystals. Yeah? And we use that now for making all kinds of responsive surfaces. Can you imagine? I saw for the first time with my naked eye, I saw an object spinning, yeah, in a unidirectional sense. And I saw the whole surface moving, you know. I could not speak for 5 minutes, you know. It was really amazing. So how does this work? You see, you have this tiny amount of motor. It winds and unwinds, yeah. The whole surface changes, and the whole architecture, the color changes, and you can rotate objects, yeah, in this way. Yeah, you can use it for amplifying motion, because you realize you go from a nanoscale, yeah, and you go to a macroscopic motion. That is an amplification, yeah, at least of 1,000,000-fold. Now, what we recently did is we put this in polymers, liquid crystal polymers. So these materials are really favored because you make liquid crystals, they are organized there, like beans in the river, and you make a polymer, and now they are very robust. And you see here, this polymer here, this is a kind of, yeah, when you irradiate with light, it bends, and it can grab something. It's like, yeah, an arm, you know, or a muscle. And we can do this, we can twist it, you see, left-handed and right-handed, and we can walk this polymer. I don't know how many people here this morning, when you switched on the light in your kitchen, was a plastic bag starting to walk? No, eh? We have now a piece of plastic with, thanks to these motors, they start to walk towards the light, yeah? So we can walk over the table, a piece of plastic, autonomous, only with the energy of the light. Now, why do we do that, these kind of things? Because we can make soft robotics in the future, yeah? That's the whole idea. Eh? This is a hot topic, of course, making materials for graphite, soft robotics, biomedical application, etc. So we also make different ones, and you see here, we can make all kinds of forms, yeah? You can move inward and outward, yeah? Simply how you organize these materials, yeah? And this is all reversible, eh? So you can move inward, outward, you can do grippers, yeah? And this is our program on soft polymer materials based on the principles that are also used in the display, yeah? But now using our motors to control real motion. And this is what we also did. You see, we make flowers. This is 3D printing, eh, of the polymers. So we make flowers, as you can see. We even made, yeah, this insect, and it can flap its wings, yeah, when you irradiate it. So when you have the right wavelength of the light, it flaps its wings. Can you imagine? It cannot fly yet, but it can move its wings. So that's where we stand at the moment. And of course, this is a stepping stone, as I said, towards soft robotics of the future. And believe it or not, in the future, maybe 20 years from now, you will experience this kind of soft robotic materials. So how does it work? You see, you have here this motor, you put it in the polymer, liquid crystal. These are these mesogenic units, and you can make a muscle. And let me show you a movie, how it works. So you see, you take this motor, yeah, and it has two short arms that are needed to bridge, yeah. It's a kind of cross-linker in a polymer, eh? I'm sure many of you heard about polymers cross-linking. So you see, you need only a few, and it starts to contract, expand, contracts, expand. And due to this liquid crystal units, it amplifies dramatically. And yeah, this is our way to make a muscle. You see, it can bend, it can pick up something, and it's pretty strong. And this is just, I don't touch it, eh? It's just with light. So you see, we start with a motor, a molecule, yeah? We amplify to the mesoscopic unit, scale, and then to the microscopic. So we amplify it through all these length scales to make a real muscle type function. Now, that brings me to confinement, yeah? And I got this question about surfaces, and once again, if I talk with my colleagues in physics, they always say, oh yeah, we like to make devices, but then you need things on surfaces. So we put this on surfaces, you know, with legs, you know, responsive surfaces, and making all kinds of arrays, yeah? And I don't want to talk about all these things, but let me say, we made a single molecule. Here is the motor, here is the legs, this is an 8 nanometer rod, and here is a fluorescent dye, because we want to see it. And together with our colleagues in Belgium at the University of Leuven, we made this molecule and put it on the surface. It was a 32-step synthesis. It took us a long time, you know, to make it and to prove it. But at the end, we put it on the surface, yeah, with legs, and we could see a single motor rotating. Can you imagine? A single motor rotating? Because it rotates under the influence of light, and it is fluorescent, so you can see the emission, yeah? Like a lamp, you know, that rotates, and it works. So we see a single motor rotating. But we can also put them on surfaces to do other things, you know. You put two legs, then they are stable, yeah, and you rotate like a propeller. And so here, once again, we put them, for instance, on gold nanoparticles, two legs, a stator, an axle, and a rotor, and the rotor starts to spin when you put in light energy. So this is, I'm from the Netherlands, you know. We like windmills. So these are the traditional windmills in Holland. This is the modern windmills that you also have in Italy now, eh? And this is our windmill, 1 billion times smaller. You see? Two legs, a stator, the axle, and the rotor. It's not powered by wind, but it's powered by light. Okay? So we built a nano windmill park. So this is our ancestors, you know. Maybe some of you, when you visit Holland, go and look at it. They were built 500 years ago to keep our feet dry, eh? Because we have to pump the water out of the country because Holland is so low. Les Pays-Bas, eh? Low-lying country. So they built this 20 meters. We built a nano windmill park, you see, 2 nanometers, 1 billion times smaller. Now you will say, come on guys, what are you doing with your students at the university? Playing to make nano windmills? Yeah? Is that, what is this for? Of course, we want to see on the surface if we can make a layer and all they rotate in the same direction. Eh? Realize that when the sun shines. Eh? But we are now working on this, and not only we, but several groups in the world, to make self-cleaning and self-repair materials. So we put them on glass, and they clean themselves. And we have now the first example where dust is simply removed from the glass. Solar panels. Yeah, in Holland it rains so much that we don't have to clean the solar panel. But when you are in the south of Italy or in the Sahara where there's a lot of sunshine, you have to clean this, eh? Because the efficiency goes down because of all the dust. Your car, yeah, you have to wash regularly, yeah? I promise you in the future you don't have to wash your car anymore because we work together with industry on coatings that are responsive and the dust will remove itself. But more important, recently I had a scratch in my finger, yeah? And when you cut your finger and you keep it clean, it repairs itself, eh? But when I cut here, yeah, or I made a scratch, whatever material, or in your car, yeah, you have to go to the garage and get it repaired, eh? Self-healing, self-repair materials is a hot topic for the future, I tell you. And so in maybe not with the cheap cars, but with the Ferrari maybe in 30 years from now, the expensive cars, don't have to wash them anymore, and they will have a coating that repairs themselves, like your body. Yeah, we have to learn this. This is a bit science fiction, but it will happen. So we put them on surfaces with three pots, for instance, instead of 2. They are very robust, and we put fluor groups there, and you can change wettability and so. There's many properties that you can change on surfaces when you rotate. Yeah, you make it dynamic. Okay, so this is what we have a whole program on making responsive surfaces, and I gave you a glimpse of what is future applications of these materials. Then I was in Berlin, yeah, and then I found this. You see, this is graffiti, as you can see, and here is our windmill. You see, with 3 legs, you see, this artist apparently had seen, there was a highlight about this paper when we published it, and he had seen it maybe in the newspaper or whatever, the magazine, and he was so inspired that he put it in his graffiti. Now, I would tell you, I got a nice medal in Stockholm, but the highest honor you can get is, of course, when a graffiti artist takes your molecule and puts it in his art. How beautiful can it be, you know? We were delighted to see this. Okay, so we put these motors just to give you a glimpse of applications, because I was going to talk about applications. You see, we put these motors on surfaces with different legs, and then we put stem cells on top of it. We do this work together with the medical school, yeah? Stem cells on top of these layers. And you know, stem cells can differentiate in heart cells, in muscle cells. Stem cells are everywhere in this biomedical field. And what you do is, when you rotate the motor, stem cells are very sensitive to pressure changes in surface, because they anchor to surfaces. They put a protein layer. And we could change the stem cell behavior. So they differentiate different when we rotate the motors. Yeah? Because they express different proteins, the DNA changes, and we are now looking how we can differentiate from heart cells to muscle cells, for instance, using this kind of tricks of dynamic functions. Now, 3D confinement. You know, we, as I said, we enjoy very much these materials, yeah? And there should be several more names here, but these porous materials have become extremely popular for, you know, for transport, sensing, membranes, air purification, water capture, CO2, etc. And just very briefly, because I don't want to give the whole story, because Angelina can give a much better story about this than I. But what we do is we combine the motors with these MOFs. So you see here the layers. These are the zinc tetracarboxylates. You have the motor with 2 pyridines. They coordinate to the zinc. And you see every pillar is a motor that rotates. So that means that we have these porous materials and we can change the porosity. Yeah? That's the idea. Make it dynamic. Of course, there should be sufficient free volume, yeah, to rotate. Now, how to demonstrate? Yeah? I will not show the NMR. The solid state NMR is very important. But we should also not forget our heroes. Raman, you know. Raman discovered Raman spectroscopy. And that is very powerful for solid materials also to see different states, you know. So the combination of solid state NMR and Raman spectroscopy gives you information about the rotation of the process. So we put this in metal organic frameworks, and you see this paper was also highlighted in Nature Nanotechnology as motorized crystals. So we also thought, if you have these layers, why not using these layers as a kind of antenna? So we put porphyrins there, palladium porphyrins, and they pick up the light. They function like a light, yeah? How do you call it? A solar panel. So a molecular solar panel. They pick up the light, they transmit the energy to the motor, and it starts to rotate. So we have a dual function metal organic framework. So that gives you a glimpse of what is possible with this kind of materials, you know. And they are extremely robust, I tell you. But they are fully dynamic. And I don't show you all the details of the absorption and so, but more recently, we have several papers together also, where we put this into porous aromatic frameworks. You can change porosity, and You can think about smart membranes, responsive catalysts, release systems for drugs, for instance, or molecular factories. There are many, many applications, you know, in the future to make thin films or to make these materials, layers, coatings, etc. And just one example that we published recently in PNAS, you see together, all visible light responsive porous aromatic frameworks for CO2 uptake. And once again, I don't want to go into the details, but in these materials, there are now these azobenzenes. And the people that were in my lecture yesterday, they remember with these azobenzenes with fluors, you can go all the way to the red light. Eh? Yes? So we have used red light to switch these, and then we can change porosity and change CO2 uptake because they are dynamic. And I think this is just the start of a journey that we want to make together, you know. It's an adventure, but that is what science is all about, eh? An adventure, and then you make fantastic discoveries and new applications. So these are the data, but let me skip it. But it's really nice. You can manipulate CO2 uptake, and these materials are very, very, very robust. So this is our joint efforts, and I'm really happy with it. So I want to tell you two more stories, yeah? One is about artificial muscle. I showed you already artificial muscles, eh? But we thought, how does nature make artificial muscles in your body? It takes proteins in water, not liquid crystals, eh? There are not liquid crystals displays in your body, but small proteins or small molecules. So, you all know what a muscle is, eh? You see these muscular creatures? Jean-Pierre Sauvage was a pioneer here because he made a kind of artificial muscle. And you know what happens in muscles? You have these filaments, and thanks to these motors, they glide, they move. And you can see amplification of collective motion from nanoscale to microscopic dimensions. And so what we did is, we looked in the literature what people did. Responsive crystals, liquid crystals, as I showed you before. Yeah, but this is all based on polymer materials and so. Yeah, so there are several groups working on polymers now to induce motion. But what we did is, we took motors that are like amphiphils, like detergents, like soap. So you see here carboxylic groups, they love water, and you see here a tail, which is an alkane, which hates water. So these molecules, they assemble into these nanofibers. This is cryotron, electron microscopy, yeah, and you see they form these beautiful fibers, simply by self-assembly in water. Okay? But that is not a muscle, eh? And then we looked again at Mother Nature, and what tricks are Mother Nature using? And you see, we just added calcium chloride, calcium 2+. It binds to the carboxylic acid groups, and it organizes this, look, into fibers, and we can simply draw a muscle from water, yeah? And you can actuate it. I will show you, yeah? Let's see if the movie works. Do you see something moving? Yeah, eh? Okay, so you see this is a centimeter long muscle, and with light it starts to actuate. And what you see moving here, ladies and gentlemen, is 95% water. Yeah? 95% water, 5% of the material. But they organize so well, yeah, using the principles of Mother Nature, that they form beautiful tapes and fibers, and we can use that to just take something. So we take a molecule with a motor, we assemble them in fibers, then we assemble them together in these bundles, and we make artificial muscles. Yeah? And that works. And this is, of course, these are quite sensitive, not like the polymers, they are much more robust, but it shows you a principle, what nature uses, you know, to make, for instance, muscles in your body. And what we recently did, and I showed this picture because yesterday we were discussing about magnetic particles and magnetic fields. And what we did is, my students, they said, can we move this? And I said, and we discussed this, and we said, okay, let's use magnetic nanoparticles. You know, we put here an amino acid, yeah, with an histidine, that binds to iron oxide nanoparticles, magnetic particles. You see here these dots, these are the particles. And now we can move, yeah, with a magnetic field to a certain spot, yeah. We then irradiate, it grabs something like a piece of paper, we move it again, and then it opens up and it delivers there. So we take advantage of the light to the bending and the grabbing, and we take a magnet to move the whole muscle, yeah, from one place to the other. So that's the advantage of using, yeah, magnetic fields and light in combination. Now, Recently, as I said, we are very much interested in biofunctions. This is 95% water, ladies and gentlemen. That means that we can use them also for biological application. And so we grow cells in it. In this, we grow stem cells in it, and we try to make artificial muscles. And you see here the cells, yeah, we can make them fluorescent. You can see the cells simply grow inside these porous muscles. And when we hit with light, it starts to bend, yeah, and the muscles work and the cells grow normal. That's important, that the cells don't die. So this is very latest results where we stand now, integrating, making artificial muscle type systems. So let me finish with my nanocar. Because we built a 4-wheel drive nanocar. Yeah? 4 of these motors. This is the solar powered car, you know, that the engineers built. I don't know, you heard about this competition in Australia? Yeah? The engineer students, also from our universities, they go to Australia and they have a fantastic time because they have a 3,000-kilometer race through the desert. And my students were very jealous. And they said, my peers, can we also go to Australia? I said, we are not engineers, we are molecular engineers. Yeah, they said, no problem, we will build a nanocar. So it took us 8 years. A PhD, no, I told the students, you know, the PhD students, I said, yes, you can go, if you succeed and it works, it operates, I pay for it. You can go to a conference in Australia and maybe also take some holiday. PhD in all of this 4 years. It took us 8 years, you know, to build it. So the first generation, unfortunately, they never made it to Australia. But after eight years, we built it, a 4-wheel drive. This is 2 meters, this is 2 nanometers. See? And here it is again. We move it over the surface. You see it moving here. This is our nanocar, a single nanocar moving under the influence of light. It's not so much about building a nanocar, but it's, of course, how do you convert rotation into translational motion, like a real car. That's what you do, the motor in your car. It rotates and it translates. So, this is the 4-wheel drive nanocar, you see. And this is the STM scanning tunneling probe microscope of a single nanocar. And it moves, yeah? So how does it move? Ladies and gentlemen, the world, the nano world, is a bit different than you know, when your muscle moves, there are millions of these motors here, yeah, that make it possible, that these filaments can glide and that your muscles move. And the nano world is a bit different, you know. So, welcome in the nano world. This is how it moves. You know, it steps over the surface. So this is the nanocar. And if you don't believe me, yeah, this is what happens in your body now. Enormously, tempos. You know, the highway, yeah, the motorway is built, and when the car has passed by, the motorway is detached. This is all proteins, This is all fully dynamic. Can you imagine that you are alive when you see this? Yeah, this happens in your cells 1 million times. And so the new highway is built, yeah, and it's all fully dynamic. And now you see how things are transported in your body. When I saw this the first time, I could not believe that I was alive. That this is the way, with these motors, you know, the steps, they move and they transport things. So maybe our designs are not so bad after all, By the way, this is a modern electric car. Sorry, this is a Tesla. Maybe I should have chosen an Italian car. Excuse me. This is our nano car. You see, this powder. But realize there is 1 billion times 1 billion identical nano cars there. So our car manufacturing plant is not so bad after all, compared to what they do. Anyway, there was also a electric car. No, not an electric car. The first car, yeah, mechanical car, was built by Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah, and I saw it today because this morning I was in the Da Vinci Museum, and he is my hero, and it's amazing. Please go there and look at it. That was in 1500. In 1835, Siebander Strating, who was a professor of chemistry in Groningen, yeah, he built an electric car. This was the first electric car in the world. Can you imagine this year? The first electric car. Because at that time, electrolysis was developed, was invented. And just before that, and he built an electrolysis cell, and he could move this. And he was moving this around the cathedral in the center of Groningen, you know. So that was amazing. And so there was also a Formula One race for nanocars. You see, the first ever race of molecular cars, 36-hour live race for nanocars. That was in Toulouse, in France. Yeah. So let me finish. Some of the senior people here, they remember this movie and this book, The Fantastic Voyage. Eh? So there was a robot, that was injected in the body. It went to the brain to do a surgery. Yeah. So will we have nanorobots? And again, with my students, we discussed, it's nice that we build all these light-driven systems, but can you also make a kind of submarine? Yeah? So this is a carbon nanotube. You all know what a carbon nanotube is, eh? And you are in material science. And we put 2 enzymes, glucose oxidase and catalase. And then we had the discussion, what is the fuel in your body? And there's plenty of sugar. So we thought, let's convert sugar with these enzymes. And you see here, it moves. As long as there is sugar, it converts sugar and it moves. It's not very controlled yet, but it's completely autonomous. When there is sugar water, it moves. When the sugar is depleted, it stops. So this is our stepping stone to nano submarines and nano robots that can also go through your blood veins. Is it science or science fiction? I don't know. In 50 years from now, I predict that the surgeon in the hospital here will inject a nano robot in your body that goes to find a tumor cell or deliver a drug or whatever. So the young stars here will still see that happening. Wait a couple of decades, yeah? It will happen. But I'm not good in prediction. I'm a scientist, and the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And that is what we all do together, as scientists. So with that, once again, I start with Mother Nature. I make motors. I showed you how we can control polymetallicity, surfaces, MOFs, liquid crystals, and we even build a nanocar. So this is the kind of applications we are looking for, yeah? Artificial muscles, controlling cell growth, but also these MOF and porous materials and so. And once again, is this funding agencies, but also my team of enthusiastic students, yeah? By the way, they forgive me now that they never made it to Australia, that it took too long. But we are very proud of our nanocar, you can imagine. And then to a message to the young people here, because I started in a small village. Nobody ever went to university, except for me and my friends. And that was an experience. And what I learned over the years, discover your talent. Yeah, my talent apparently is, I enjoy molecules, a lot. Follow your dreams, be confident, discover your energy. What is your passion? Yeah? And in particular, also discover your limits. How high can you set the bar? Sometimes it's very difficult, but it's really cool if you solve something very difficult. Eh? But most important in this adventure in the unknown, all the senior people here, for them, they also started as students, and like me, and it's an adventure. Be happy that you can enter this adventure, and my wise advice, follow your dreams. Yeah? So, did I know I would get a Nobel Prize when I was this young boy coming from high school, or from going to high school and then to the university? I never thought about it. I mean, if you want to win a gold medal at the Olympics, there will be Olympics here, eh? If you want to win a gold medal and you dream all the day about this gold medal, you will never win a gold medal. What they do is they get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, they train very hard, and when they are a bit lucky, they go to the Olympics in Paris or in Milan, and they might win a gold medal. But then, on 2011, on the evening, 9:15, I got a telephone call from the United States, from a colleague that I know from Minnesota. And he said, Ben, you were on American television. I said, come on, I'm a professor of chemistry in Groningen. Why should I be on? No, primetime American television. In The Simpsons, last night. And you look, that was the week before the announcement of the Nobel Prize. That's always, first week of October. And you see here the betting pool, chemistry, Saar, Mörner, Feringa, Kajira. Mörner got the Nobel Prize in 2014. I had to wait another 2 years. The next morning I came to the lab, and even before I stepped off the bike, my students came to me and said, Ben, you will get the Nobel Prize, predicted by The Simpsons. I said, look, guys, if you are, as a scientist on primetime American television, predicted by The Simpsons that you get a Nobel Prize, what is the highest honor you can get, you know? But then I went to Stockholm, and you see here, I got the Nobel Prize from the Swedish king. He's the queen, the princess, etc. It was a fantastic event. It was like a fairy tale. And then we had a nice dinner, you see, 1,200 guests, a 4-hour dinner, and it was absolutely fantastic. I'm sitting here somewhere next to the princess. It was absolutely beautiful, a great honor, and a great pleasure. So let me finish with another hero, yeah? And that is Albert Einstein, the joy of discovery. And I hope I shared with you the joy of discovery and that you all experience this joy of discovery. But Albert Einstein said about knowledge, creativity, and imagination, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. So I wish you all a lot of knowledge, but even more imagination and creativity during your studies, and much success for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for this, for your passion, especially for your passion is
Molecules, yeah.
incredible. So now the discussion is open, especially questions from the other people, but actually not.
Oh, yeah, he's
Later.
very young boss. Don't hesitate.
Does it work?
Thank you very much for the amazing lecture as usual. Actually, I have several scientific questions, but I would like to ask you a very general one. Are you sure that you install robots, automation on your labs, and of course, artificial intelligence? So how do you think is going to merge with your imagination and whatever? So this is a very big question in future. You're going to substitute you or not?
This is a very important question because, you know, we all learn about AI every day, and we think AI will take over everything. AI will not take over everything. Your knowledge and creativity, and especially your critical attitude, will be crucial. But AI is a tool. Yeah, it can help you. Yeah, and there is tremendous opportunities because we have now a cooperation, you know, with a major company working on, how do you call it? Skincare products. You know, this is what you buy for lots of money, you know, in the shop. This is a mixture of many components, and it's very important, you know, what is the texture, yeah? So next time, you know, you go to the Christmas market and you buy this brand stuff for Christmas, think about that it is a mixture of a lot of components, you know, that makes it soft, that makes it, that you don't get these wrinkles, that you, whatever, it feels good, it smells good. And so we work with this company because it's in soft materials. You have to do the formulations, and maybe we have to do thousands of experiments, yeah? And so what we do is we take AI and we design, say, 25 experiments, yeah? And then with that data, the robots get the data, and then we feed it back to the AI programs. I'm not an AI expert. We hired a young guy from Princeton University who is now a tenure track assistant professor, and he is an expert in AI. And so I work together with him. We do the experiments, and he does the AI, and the students work together, yeah, in a team, the PhD students. And it works beautiful. And we use it for that kind of thing, together with industry, and we use it for catalysis. So I do also catalysis. Briefly, I talked about catalysis yesterday, to develop new catalysts for certain reactions. And what my students do is, catalysts depend on metals, but also ligands, ligand design. And so we can make ligands. But there is a lot of experiments. So what we do is we select via AI, yeah, specific ligands, and then we do experiments with the robots, and then we feed the data back, and hopefully we can accelerate, yeah, and we don't have to do 5,000 experiments, but just the 100 best or 50 best experiments. So this is how we use it to direct our experiments and to manage the data. Yeah. So, but yeah, other people use it in a different context, of course, but this is how we use it.
It's not a question,
Sure,
so I'm
sure.
allowed. I think that artificial intelligence, it's very misleading definition.
Oh.
I think it should be assistance to intelligence.
That
That's a
is-
better
I
definition
like that one.
because it's a tool.
Assisted intelligence.
But
That's-
while I have the microphone, I can also ask a question.
Yes, sure.
So if I think to the body, the real only part of the body that functions like your machine, I mean, it's light, which is actuated into emotion, which turns into an information. It's the mechanism of vision. Did you ever try to make artificial retinas with your
Oh, I'm not
molecules?
artificial retinas, but yesterday I talked about just a lot, and we got the inspiration, of course, from the fission. Yeah. So the fission is a simple molecule that changes shape. It's a rotation around the carbon-carbon double bond in the retinol, and then it changes the protein and signal goes to the brain. That's the whole basis for information processes in your eye. There are millions of these molecules, and that makes it possible. And that was the basis for our molecular switches. When I started as a young assistant professor, I thought I want to do information storage and then manipulation with light, like in your eye. But we never built it into an artificial retinol or so. But there is a group in America that uses it to indeed in proteins. We also use the switch in proteins that I showed yesterday for treating cancer and those kind of things. But this group is working to, I think, a group in New York and a group in California. And so they are really experts in the process of fission. So they work together with the biologists, and they had a paper that was called Making Blind Mice See Again. So they used it to pick up light signals for blind mice. I don't know how these mice got blind. I don't want to discuss this, but apparently they did it in the lab, and they had the article. It was a headline: Making blind mice see again. This is fascinating, eh? If you think about that. Yeah. I don't think with you, but with them. But there are opportunities there. Yeah, there are really opportunities.
Questions?
Please don't be shy, there are.
So, no questions. Okay.
Can I ask you what are the environmental limits of molecular motors? What are the environmental limits of molecular
Environmental
motors?
limits. Yeah, that's an important. Of course, we build these machines and we do synthesis in the laboratory, but they're powered by light. Yeah, of course. Yeah, like solar light, etc. But also stability is very important. Eh? So what we always do is when we build new motors, we look also how long do they rotate? Because materials, organic materials, when you have a beautiful dye, yeah, look at this orange. I like orange a lot. I'm from Holland, But when she puts this outside in the bright sun this summer for a month, it will fade away, because colors, yeah. So you always have to be careful with materials, because all materials have fatigue problems, yeah. That they might, die, go wrong, something might happen, whatever, and so, And so, yes, we test that, yeah. And of course, some are stable, some are less stable, yeah. That's very important, yeah.
Okay. So I'm wondering, so I have a question. I'm wondering, when you showed that you can make the helix, generate the helix plus or minus.
Sure.
Have you tried also with some polymers that have a stereo center along the
Oh,
polymer chain?
Yeah, no,
Because,
that's a good.
I'm wondering.
That's a good point, because then to see if it affects each other.
I can't imagine what the
Yeah. We have not done that. We have not used it, for instance, for propylene.
For example, for propylene, exactly.
We have not done that. We used.
Maybe you can generate a helix, which is
who knows? Because these polymers, the robustness of polymers of a piece of plastic, is strongly depending on the organization of the fibers. So if you have fibers aligned, but if you can make it dynamic, you might be easier to recycle, for instance.
Yeah.
So we are looking at plastic recycling, building in dynamic functions, because this is a real problem, Plastic that are robust, but then you can recycle. And if we can use this motion, dynamic functions, it might be easier to change the interaction. Yeah. And then maybe this is a good idea. I've never done it with this chiral polymers now.
Okay, but so in Milano, you know, polypropylene was
Yeah,
invented.
no, maybe I should try polypropylene and then I will come back
Okay,
to talk
so
about it.
any other questions? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so since you mentioned that we can use the molecular motors to induce a plastic deformation, can we use it to produce some kind of what can I say, machinery in that sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because now we can move. You can have seen, we can even have a butterfly that does this. We have this artificial muscles, etc. We use it now for 3D printing technique, yeah, to make polymers. But you can also make polymer tapes, yeah. And when they contract, expand, you can move other objects, you know. So there is opportunities to amplify the motion, to go to machine-like function. But there, honestly, I have to team up. I'm a molecular engineer, yeah. I have to team up with real engineers, you know, because we also in our material science department and and chemical engineering, physical engineering, we have mechanical engineers. And they are very interested in, of course, amplification of this kind of motion in real materials, macroscopic functions, etc. So yes, that's a very good point that you mentioned, because that will ultimately help us to show that it can be applied for some application. Like we make our windows that clean themselves, yeah. We also try to go towards more, muscle type or whatever structures that can be used in practice. Thanks for the question.
okay.
There's another question.
Okay.
Hello. So
Yes.
first of all, thank you very much for the lecture. For me, I study chemistry, master physics, master. So I just had a curiosity from your chemist point of view, how metals in this kind of applications could influence the different metals.
Metals.
So you say, first of all, you mentioned copper, coordinate, pyridines.
Yeah. This is very important because this also relates to the surface question. Yeah. We made motors that we had metals bound to the motor. So this is inorganic chemistry. Yeah. So we bind metals, and through the metal, you get different spectral properties. You know that metal complexes have all kinds of spectral properties that you can tune. That's a really advantage. But if you put motors on surfaces of metals, for instance, yeah, the energy will go to the surface. In the beginning, with our windmill park, we completely failed. Because what we did is we put these motors very close to the surface, yeah, on the metals, yeah, different metals, gold and other metals. And then what happened is, you know that from your physics class, the energy transfers from the organic molecule to the Fermi level of the metal, yeah, so you quench and it will never work. So we had to lift it up, put a little bit of grease in between, these are these legs, and then it starts to spin. Yeah, so it works with metals, but also with these metal framework complexes, yeah, you have to be careful that in some cases, you know, they might come too close and you get energy transfer or whatever. But for the metal surfaces, you are dealing with the Fermi levels and so, and that is what we had to learn, you know, because we failed in the beginning miserably. But then just a little piece of carbon in between, 4 carbons was enough. It works perfectly. And this is really, once again, I cannot emphasize enough, because I know there are bachelor and master students here. Your basics in chemistry and physics, you have to keep in mind, because I forgot that you had this energy transfer to the Fermi levels, you know. And then when we realized that, you know, that I had this, of course, in my second year undergraduate class. Yeah, and this is really important that you, yeah. Okay.
There was.
Hi, Betty. Thank you very much for the talk. You mentioned the molecular submarines, and you mentioned that an application could be at some point cancer related.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, since the idea that you have fits on sugar, have you considered something related to diabetes treatment?
No, we have
Why?
not really considered it because, you know, I work already on too many projects, you can see. And we have a big program together with the medical school, as you yesterday talking about the smart drugs and about imaging, you know, to find tumors and then to activate with light, smart photopharmacology, you know. That keeps us busy, yeah, all my students. And then we do something with the stem cells. Yeah, I cannot do all these things because when you go to how do you call it? When you go to diabetes, it might have been a potential there, but that needs that you need to learn a lot of new things, and you have to team up with another team that is experts in diabetes. You know, did I tell the story about my book that I read about cell biology the first year? Yes. Did I talk? No. Yeah. Did I tell it about it yesterday? No. I talked to you, eh?
Me, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell a small story then, because there are new students here. Yeah. You know, I go to schools, and you know that, because this is related to what you're asking. You have to learn and to study. Yeah. And I go to schools, and I was in I didn't tell the story yesterday. Yeah? Did I tell the story?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
Okay. Now I don't have to tell. Huh? Okay. Now I tell it once more because it was so enlightening. I go to schools, as you see, there with students, and we do experiments in the classroom, and we discuss it. And I was at a high school, a gymnasium, and there were, you know, 400 or so students, 15 to 18 years old. And a girl raised her hand and said, Professor Veringa, it must be fantastic that you got a gold medal in Stockholm. You never have to study anymore. You never have to make an exam anymore. And indeed, everybody started laughing. And then I said, look, this was just after COVID. Eh? I said, during these 2.5 years, I could not travel. And I work a lot with the people in the hospital, cell biologists, medical people. Now, I don't know about you, but to talk with a medical person or a real cell biologist, you need a different language. That's not the language of physics or chemistry or material science. So I bought the standard cell biology book, 1,200 pages, American book. And during COVID, I studied because then I can talk with the guys and not about diabetes, but about cancer and so. And it was completely silent. And then they came all to me, said, Professor, you are kidding, eh? You are joking. You don't have to study anymore because you are a professor and you even got a Nobel. I said, look, your study, your exam, your studies, you know, when you are a student in high school or in university, this is the start, your exam. It's the start because you have to study your whole life because you always get new experiences, either when you work in society or the university or in the companies. I mean, this is what you have to do. And so we had a half an hour discussion with the kids about lifelong learning because you know how important it is. So take it as a challenge, you know. But yeah, in their mind, there was, okay, when I get my exam, that's it for the rest of my life. Okay. So this was an interesting experience. Thank you for the question. Sorry, I was so 2 times, but it made a big impact on me about how sometimes you think, you know, maybe when I was a student, I was thinking the same, you know, but we had an interesting discussion. Okay.
Thank you very much for your lecture. My question is about, since you started with the biological molecular machines, now your inspiration, and I was wondering if you never thought or tried to couple the synthetic molecular machine with the natural ones, the ones selected by nature and the ones you invented just to see what happens, since we are in the field of imagination.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. To couple our motors, for instance, to biology. What we tried is I challenged a student that came to me, a PhD student in the beginning. This is several years ago, more than 10 years ago. And I challenged him and said, look, what we are going to do is we couple these motors to the surface of a bacteria. And then we want to fight with the bacteria, to propel it with light in the wrong direction, for instance, you know. And he worked on it for 3 months or 4 months. And then we miserably failed because it's way more complex than the simple idea, just couple a molecule, you know. And he said, can you give me a safe project? Because I don't want to do this anymore. It was a bit of a disaster. So we had other things and we did not touch on that. But still, it's one of my dreams. to build these motors to, for instance, a bacteria, and to have the bacteria go around the corner, for instance, or so. That would be cool, no? Yeah. I don't know if it's any useful, but it's fun, you know.
Okay. If there are, okay, oh.
Thank you for your lesson. I would like to ask about the question that was posed earlier about the converting luminous energy into potential or stacking energy in general. Isn't already exciting a motor with a spring-like mechanism, a conversion of light into potential or mechanical energy? Couldn't that be applied for
Yeah,
stacking energy?
I think so, because if you put a motor in, if we take a motor on the surface and we put then the polymer and we can make a spring, you can contract, expand, and you can make maybe then a device where you can store energy, yeah, in that system. So we are really seriously thinking about that. So we know how to put these motors on surfaces. We know how to contract and expand, yeah, polymers, yeah, because of the elasticity. So maybe that's a way forward, yeah. And if you have billions of these motors, you might be able to, yeah, you will not be able to power your car, or solve all the energy problems, but it's a principle, yeah, that we want to prove, yeah.
Okay, so if there are no questions, I think that
Any other great ideas, please let me know.
please, no other great ideas. So I would like to thank again, Professor. And I hope that in future he will come back again with the new ideas. Okay. Thank you very much for coming and so for attending. Thank you very much.
Good success, everyone.
Team, come.